Okay, guys, welcome back to Slasher Street Podcast. And I am absolutely delighted to be joined by a very, very special guest right now. He is the writer, director, and the producer of the upcoming 90s throwback slasher flick Final Summer, Mr. John Isberg. So, John, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And I really appreciate it. I look forward to this all day. How are you doing tonight?
Doing good. Yeah, doing good. Thanks for having me. It's exciting to be here. So thank you again, for having me on the show.
No, my pleasure. And I just want to get it probably just to save any confusion as we go through the episode. You were gracious enough to send me a copy of Final Summer. So we're not going to, or we're going to try and not spoil Final Summer in the in this interview. But if there's any questions where people are kind of thinking, how does he know that? It's like, well, I have seen the film. So I want to thank you for sending me that link because I got to watch it last night and I thoroughly enjoyed the film. I thought it was a fantastic movie and it flew by and it was very enjoyable.
Oh, thank you. Thanks again. Yeah. It's been a ride getting here. It's kind of insane. Just from when we started to now, and even in the fall, we had the film in festivals, and every time after a festival, I would take it back and recut it again. And so by the time, I think we just finished adding music as of the end of December. So it's been kind of evolving through the whole course. So anyway.
And now we're here. We'll get into all of it. We're going to get absolutely into all of this all the Final Summer and everything. But I suppose the best place to start is obviously at the beginning. So before we even get into your career, have you always been a fan of horror films? Have you always been a fan of slasher films?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I grew up kind of a kid in the 80s, and so I think that because the thing I always was thinking about is what is the appeal, what is the enduring appeal of these films, because there's just something about them. Sometimes and I really feel like it was the iconography, the visual side of these films that was just, it kind of conjures all of these feelings and emotions. And I remember being a kid and seeing Friday the 13th posters at the theater, or just horror films in general, and then the masks of Michael Myers. And I had two older cousins who were constantly waging this battle of who would win in a fight between Freddy and Jason, when I was growing up. And so I think I just kind of grew up in that environment. And then I saw Poltergeist for the first time. That scared the living daylights out of me. And it just was, I remember I had a friend who lived across the street. We had a basic TV, but he had HBO and cable. And so he would tell me all about the scary movies. So we'd be walking to school in second grade or third grade, and he would tell me the plots of Halloween 2 at the time, which made no sense at all. But I was wow, that's cool. I can't wait. Woo, that kind of thing. I think the movies were playing in my head. And then I remember at my school library, they had all these Universal horror books. And so my parents were pretty conservative. And so we couldn't watch these, I couldn't even dress up for Halloween, And the first year I dressed up as a mummy one time. And I was so excited because it was the closest I could get to being a horror monster, and then, but the tough thing about it was just my dad was a paramedic. And so it was one really long strand of bandage or whatever. Yeah. I couldn't go to the bathroom all day or whatever. This is the worst costume ever, but it was just so. And I think but I would smuggle the books home under my coat, and then my mom would find them inevitably and leave them on my bed they were some kind of porn magazine or something. And it's thanks, Mom. But I loved horror, and I think later on, as I kind of got more into horror, I think it's just, it's the things that you're not allowed to watch. That's exactly where you gravitate toward, I'm sure. What about for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I was born I just really wish I got to experience that 80s kind of boom, because I might look older than I am, but I'm just, I've just turned 30. So I completely missed the 80s 80s boom. And to be honest, I don't even remember, the video store kind of experience. I vaguely remember going to Blockbuster, but it just wasn't what you see in kind of, I suppose, the movies and how people experience it. And I really wish I got to experience that. And yeah, I've just been a horror fan pretty much all my life since I was like, well, 10 or 11, since I was allowed to watch them. I remember, but I wanted to be a horror, not what I wanted to be a horror fan, but I was really interested in horror. And I think when I was like 10 or 11, I asked my mum if I could get like some horror movies for Christmas, and she delivered in my stocking. There was Nightmare on Elm Street, The Exorcist, Friday the 13th, like all of the, the big ones, the heavy hitters. And yeah, ever since then, I was just an absolute addict for horror.
That's so cool. Sorry, you're saying?
No, I was going to say, do you have any like favorites? Or because I think Final Summary is, there's a lot of Friday the 13th nods. And
it's interesting because like when I think just going back then, I remember like, because we had a video store in town that was like kind of independent, like mom and pop store. And I would always try to get posters, or they had the big cardboard stand-ups. And I remember getting this massive, like Darkman, like the Sam Raimi movie Darkman. He had this massive stand, and I got it. And it took up half the room in my house. But I was like, yeah, it's so cool, And then of course Evil Dead 2, and all of that with Bruce Campbell. But I think like I grew up in Aurora, and our town was famous for that movie Wayne's World, which wasn't filmed in Aurora, but it was like set there. But anytime I would say where I'm from, everybody's like, Wayne's World. I'm like, yeah, that's right. But I moved to a smaller town. It was in the middle of cornfields, and I went from a lot of friends to like a lot of bullies. And then I had this one friend named Chick, and he loved like comic books, and he got me into all these horror movies. And it was like Evil Dead 2, and then Alien and Aliens, and then, sci-fi. And I just kind of loved it. And so I think, but the funny thing with slashers is it's like, I distinctly remember the first time I watched like a Friday the 13th movie, and it felt like, I think it was just because it felt scary to watch it, because it was like, oh, I shouldn't watch this. And what if my dad runs in and sees me watching this, and so I had that appeal to it, where I think it was scarier. It felt scarier than it probably should be. It's like, you look at it now and you're like, but I think it's something about it. And then going into the research on this film, I watched like 200 slasher films. And I think like some of my favorites out of that were like films like My Bloody Valentine or Black Christmas, stuff like that, I could go on forever about this stuff. So
that's awesome. That is awesome. And for me, like, obviously this is Slasher Street podcast. Slashers are completely my favorite subgenre of horror. I just think they're just it's a bit of a weird way to say it, but they're just like feel good movies. Mm-hmm. Like you can just put them on a Sunday, just chill out and just enjoy them. And you don't need to think too much. You just enjoy seeing people getting like taken out one by one, and it's just it's weirdly therapeutic. Like I don't they go like a 200 slasher film marathon. I would just wish I fantastic.
Well, it's so fun because it's like I don't really feel like there's necessarily a bad slasher film. It's just variations of quality and production, but there's just so many good ones out there. So I feel like some of my, like the thing I kind of really was interested in with the 80s slashers is because I remember like as a kid, I remember there was these guys, Siskel and Ebert. And did you see the new 80s, the horror doc that just came out on Shudder?
In Search of Darkness.
Yeah, and it was great how they went into that whole like Gene Siskel like publicly shaming all these like Friday the 13th, like, oh, shame on you, and write them a letter. And I'm like, but I remember when Silent Night, Deadly Night came out, and just the uproar and all of the moms against horror films would come out and like petition the film, which as a filmmaker, you're like, this is amazing. And now we have great publicity for a film that to me was actually kind of interesting when I watched it later. I'm like, that's kind of interesting because I also taught kids with emotional disabilities who were in a lot of trauma. And so I remember watching that as one of the 200 films and thinking like, it was an interesting exploration of how trauma kind of shapes what eventually happened. But no, there are just so many, like the thing I kind of gravitated to were like the regional horror films that were made outside of the studio system. Cause I felt like there's a really like Columbia Pictures, I think, made this movie called Happy Birthday to Me or whatever. where it's like a slasher film, but they try to dress it up with like a little bit more, you know,
Yeah,
hard
yeah,
action. I'm like, just give me just give me the thing, you know, just give me the thing I like.
yeah. Just that's the thing, good slashers. So, and to be honest, as you say there, like there's like not a bad. Like for me, some of the best slashers are some of the, I suppose, worst
Right.
slashers because they're just so much fun to watch. Like I just yeah, brilliant stuff. So,
Yeah.
but
I just I
sorry,
just
carry on.
watched there's Death Screams that I just watched. That was, I don't know if you've seen that one. It's on Arrow Video. It's
Oh, right.
really good. But it was so bizarre because it was like the son of Ozzy and Harriet was like the director of this film, and it was shot like in South Carolina or something, and it was kind of really bizarre, but also really great, you know. And
Yeah,
it's like, you know, I mean, they stay at this carnival for like half of the movie, but once they get away from the carnival, then it kicks into gear, and you're like, okay, thank God. But there's just like, have you seen Madman or?
yeah.
Oh yeah. I love how like at the beginning he's singing the Campfire Legend, you know, and then you got Pieces and I don't know, all the Canadian, like they call it the Canucksploitation films or whatever,
Yeah.
you know, the like, what can we do with Jamie Lee Curtis? I've got
Yeah.
we'll put her on a train, you know, we'll put her over
Yeah.
here, you know. Anyway, I could go on forever, but
Oh, that's awesome. So anyway, so like, how did you get started into making, movies? Like, is that
yeah,
something you've always wanted to do? How did you transition into that?
yeah. Well, it's funny because like it really kind of started way back, like in middle school when I moved to that town, and I had a friend named Mike, and he had a video camera and two VCRs, and so me and Chick would go over to Mike's house on weekends, and we would just write movies, and we would make these terrible like ninja movies where we were like superheroes and jumping off of, you know, like we probably should have realized, oh, you can edit that instead of actually jump off of a roof, you know, into some you know, like cardboard boxes. We
Yeah.
you could have faked that shot, you know, stuff like that. But it just kind of, and then we would basically make movies and then substitute them for homework sometimes in class. And then I wanted to go to film school, but I went to film school briefly and dropped out. And then most of my 20s, I was playing in bands. And then one of the bands I was in, we did some music videos, and I was kind of blown away by the experience because we worked with this DP. I think he's from Scotland actually, and I was just like, he was the coolest person I'd ever met. Like I felt like the director was a friend of ours, but I was so drawn to what he was doing because I was like, well, he's doing the really cool thing with the camera and the lighting, and so I just felt like I wanted to know more, and so that was just kind of there. And then later on, as I got into more bands, we started making music videos on our own. And then finally, a film came to town in 2014, and it was kind of right when I was done with school. And so they said, oh, you know, we're looking for like, you know, interns or whatever. So I interned as a grip on it. And with grips, it's like the best position on a film set because you're doing everything with lighting, you know, so like diffusion and everything, and you're building rigs and all this kind of stuff. So it was a really great experience. And then the people on the set worked in Chicago in the film industry. So that really gave me like a really good professional experience. And then after that, like I was like, just got bit by the bug. I was like, I got to do this all the time. So I bought a Canon T3i, and then I graduated to like a Blackmagic cinema camera. And then,
Yeah.
and I would, you know, I was like gripping on commercials locally. And then I had some mentors that kind of took me under, and I learned a lot from them. And then I started doing this film workshop in the back of our studio. And it was supposed to be like once a month. And we just started doing it every Wednesday night. And then we just kept doing more and more. Anytime I bought a C-stand, and I was like, all right, guys, we're going to use the C-stand, or, you know, and we just did a lot of like lighting exercises. And the thing was, we were always I think I was drawn to horror lighting because to me, it's like the most kind of visually interesting, because I've worked on some films that are drama, and it's okay, but it's kind of, you know, it's like you have your lighting or whatever. It's almost like interview lighting for like 20 days or something. It's not that interesting. But like with horror, you can do all sorts of cool, you know, like you're turning lights off, they're responding to the environment, you know, you have this backlit, you know, like Exorcist, you know.
Yeah.
Like when he shows up at the house and there's that that ray of light coming from a room out there. It's so it's iconic. And so, or Halloween when like Jamie Lee Curtis is in the doorway and Michael Myers comes out through the darkness. I love that stuff. So yeah. So then so that was, and then I worked on several films kind of after 2014. I worked for a couple of days on this movie called Slice, which was like the only A24 direct to streaming video. It would have been like the A24 like direct to video like back in the day, but and that was fun. That was some really interesting stories on that. But it was just one of those things where like I just wanted to keep learning more and more. And we would do bigger and bigger projects. And then when films would come to town, we'd work on them, and it just kind of grew. So it was really, it just kind of, I don't know,
Awesome. So you said before that you were in bands, and so was music kind of, if we could, I don't know if you're okay to just touch on that. Like, were you in like touring bands, and then was that kind of a job at the time before moving over to?
Yeah, in my 20s, we were kind of trying to make a go at being, actual, because I was in a band called the Firebird Band, and we would go all throughout the U.S. and Canada on tour, and we had songs on the radio and videos on like what was like Fuse and VH1 and Much Music and all over the place. But it's just one of those things where egos, and you're in your 20s and you're kind of an idiot. And so I think like now we're friends, but I feel like it's a pressure, stress does things to people, I think. And so I think that was, it's hard to be a musician, I think,
Yeah. Even harder these days. I promote gigs in my town here. Like that's kind of one of my many side hustles. Like I've got a promoter here, and like, the bands, it's so difficult now with cost of touring, and then you don't make any money on the music that you actually make. It's all on merch. Right. It's such a shit business, but like when you're on stage, it's absolutely awesome. But it's just such a difficult business to be in at the moment, I think.
I think the cool thing about it was that it kind of taught me, because we would go on tour in a van for like 2 months at a time and like live off $5 a day. So it kind of taught me like, and plus like you're trying to, be professional too. So I think it kind of taught me a lot of like just resourcefulness and just sticking through when things are tough, because it's like if you have a tribe of people around you or a good crew, and you can stay through the tough moments, that really helps when things get really tough, But so I think that was, and then also when you get into editing, the thing that I found with editors, and even when I'm working with actors, because we had to do some ADR on this film, was like there's people who seem to come from a musical background seem to be able to do ADR really well, because there's that rhythmic and that cadence and the musicality. And so it's all these little things, or even with editing, it's like you learn that there's a rhythm to every scene, sometimes. And it's like, do you want to, let's draw this out, and then hit them with, the thing, or, what I just, all that stuff. So
awesome. So we went into, we'll talk, we're absolutely going to get into final summary. So you made this is your feature debut, I believe, this is the big one. So what made you want to make a slasher movie of all things? Was that something that you just, that was the dream to make a slasher film, or was it just, what was the reason for going into kind of that subgenre?
Yeah, I think I think because one of the things that we would do in my workshop is talk about, like, everybody would always go and pitch movies or whatever, like to make, shorts or whatever. And I'm always like, you got to do like the most efficient thing, because if this is you're learning all the time. And so there's all these hurdles. And if you can kind of see where the hurdles are coming, maybe you can avoid them somehow. And so one of the things I was thinking was kind of efficiency of story. And what I love about slasher films is they usually take place in one night, right? So it's like, okay, so at least in terms of story structure, it's like, here's the start, and then there's the morning. And so it's going to end at some point, and I think it's just, and to go back into what you, so like they always call it like backing into your film. So you look at what resources you have. And, I wanted to do a creature feature at one point because I like movies like The Howling, but I'm like, yeah, that's going to be expensive and look bad. so so then I thought, like, well, I do love slasher films. Why don't we just do like a guy in a mask killing a bunch of teens, because that seems pretty linear, and there's 100, 1,000 of these things. So it's like, all right, let's just do that. And so I just started looking around for locations, and then I found this Boy Scout camp nearby. And so I kind of connected with them, and they said, oh, yeah, sure. So I basically went to the camp and looked around the place, and I was like, oh, I like that bridge, or that's the cool suspension bridge over this river, or they got a pool here. And so it's like the wheels kind of start turning, and you're thinking like, okay, I can, because I think the other thing is like, like right to what you have, right to the resources you do have. And then to go back to horror, because it's a great genre for emerging filmmakers to do, versus a drama where like you need names and no one's going to be in your movie if you've never done a film before.
Yeah.
And you don't have a famous last name or something. So it's like, okay. And I think I go back to like what you were saying. It was like, you love these films. And so that's kind of where I came from, I think, on that. It's like, so yeah.
Awesome. So, well, you touched on it. Well, well, I might ask a question now, actually, because you touched on that. The setting for Final Summer is the summer camp setting, which is synonymous with slasher movies. And but the thing is, with this particular summer camp, it obviously it appeared very genuine on the screen. It felt like a real summer camp. I don't know if you've actually played the game The Quarry. It's on PS5 and PS4. It's like a super massive game where it's like more like a movie than a game. This camp looked just like that camp in the game. It was like there was like the pool and the kind of the bridge, that kind of where we see the killer for not the first time, but when kind of the kids see the killer on the bridge. It totally reminded me of The Quarry, and that was an awesome set. So, how did you find that location? Did you already know it existed, or do you know?
I was looking around for camps, and there was another camp that they told me no. But it was like the most perfect, like it looked like the Camp Nobisoko from the original Friday the 13th. There was this lake, it was like trees along of it. It had this dock with the big, it looked straight out of Friday the 13th. And it was pretty close by. And so I asked them, and they were like, a horror movie? They're like, no. So I'm like, all right. Which, makes sense.
Surely they would have. It's a summer camp. Surely they would be like,
I know. It's perfect.
Don't see any horror films ever. Like, this is where they are. This is where they are.
Yeah. So I saw this other camp about 30 minutes from where I live in Champaign, and I was looking at it, and I was like, well, it's kind of isolated. It's not that many people know about it. So I feel like maybe they'd be open to this kind of a thing. And a lot of the Friday the 13th movies were shot at summer camps. I'm like, okay, there's a precedent. So okay, so I reached out to them, and they said sure. So I was kind of blown away. But it was good too, because it was also, COVID, at the time we were still really in it. And I'd worked on a movie the prior summer called Revealer, which was out on Shudder recently. And like my dad was a paramedic, my mom was a nurse. And so they were like the COVID kind of protocol, like supervisors on that film. And that was like one of the first films in our state that kind of got back into production with the COVID protocols. And so that helped me to see how, like, okay, this is how they're doing it. And we can take these things and put them to our film, because our budget was so small. Like if someone got sick, that would have been it. We wouldn't have been able to finish it really. So it's like we had to build a bubble. So it was kind of cool where we were able to actually stay at the camp the entire time that we shot, which was awesome. Because it's you just get into that weird world. Like like some of the actors, they talk about how they went to Target one day after being at the camp for like weeks or something, and they were like, "This is the most surreal experience." There's like gum there and like things they can buy, and it was we all stayed at these terrible. They were like the camp like staff had these little like circle of really terrible, smelly. Small cabins, and it was like full of dead rats and snakes, and I had to clean it out for like 2 days. It was disgusting, but it was a great camp. It was really fun. Like the locations, I think, were the things that I was like,
Yeah,
I want to
yeah.
see this, you know. So anyway,
The location's a real winner. Like I was really impressed watching the film.
yeah.
Like the location was fantastic. Like
Oh, yeah.
it felt like, well, like I say, it felt like a genuine summer camp because it was a genuine summer camp.
Right.
But that's
Yeah.
that is. So did you? Where did the idea of Final Summer come from? Like, did you always want it to be a camp
Mhm.
slasher film, or
Yeah.
was
Well,
that just did you just stumble upon the camp kind of thing?
I think like it's funny because like I do love like the Friday 13th movies a lot, and I just felt like I love Sleepaway Camp too, all those like the
Yeah,
burning and stuff like that, and I'm just like it'd be. And I think for me, when I looked at when I look at Friday 13th movies, I like them, but sometimes I feel like they're a little slow, and so I wanted something that could be kind of like the most like roller coaster version of a Friday the 13th kind of a film, where it's like all this stuff is happening. Because I go back to the original Friday, where like nobody knows what's happening. Like there's a killer, but no one knows. They just kind of wake up, and then there's an axe in their head. And
yeah,
then it's like only at the end when like a body gets thrown into the window and Adrienne King's like having her tea that she knows anything is happening. And so I thought it would be fun to kind of take that framework and that locate like setting, but do something different with it, where it's like instead of nobody knows what's going on, I wanted everybody to see like, holy cow, like what,
yeah,
because it's so that was kind of interesting. And then I also thought like, well, if instead of like the Friday movies, they're always kind of at the beginning of camp, so they don't know each other, they're always trying to hook up. I was like, well, what if it's the end of camp, they're sick of each other, but they have that shared history and that shared sense of friendships and annoyances and people they're tired of, they just want to go home, and I thought, well, that would be an interesting, because then now it's like instead of you're just trying to hook up with someone, if you're in a situation like that, you're forced to kind of go to save your friend's life or something.
yeah,
So I kind of thought if like it was almost like, what if you were really in a slasher film? Like, what would you do? And I know like people are always like, oh, I would do that. I'm like, no. That's what you think you would do.
yeah.
What you would really do is like run like that way, like
Oh, yeah,
forget your buddy and be like, ah, shoot, or something like, like that. And then you got to go
yeah.
back, save his life, and you're like, ah, cursing the whole way, So that was kind of the some of the inspiration for the slasher, and then we can go into the survivor thing in a little bit too if you want. But
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we could touch on that now, actually, because I've got a couple of other questions about kind of other things as well in the film. So that kind of leads on nicely to, I suppose, some of the themes of the movie as well, which
yeah.
is obviously past trauma, and we have our final girl who, throughout the movie, we see her past trauma and why she reacts to things. I'm trying not to spoil the film as best as I can. So, what was kind of the idea behind that, kind of the inspiration behind that for you, like making that a central, it is a central theme of the film, throughout.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting because so I have PTSD. I got it from a pretty abusive relationship I was in with someone who, I guess you would say like antisocial personality disorder or malignant narcissist sociopath kind of thing. And so I was with this person for probably about a year, and then spent like 2 years trying to kind of get away from this person. And then, I went through a lot of like therapy, and I had PTSD pretty bad. And then I also taught kids in middle school who also had PTSD from a lot of abuse and trauma. And then my dad, he was a paramedic for 35 years. And so he has PTSD as well. And so I thought it would be interesting to show that. And then also to go to like the villain of the film, I kind of felt like, when you go through things like that, like I've kind of talked about this before, but like when you go through situations like that, it's hard to relate to people because the things that you've seen, it's like so weird. Like I always get people like, oh yeah, I dated a crazy person once. You're like, yeah, I don't know about that. Yeah, no, this is not like, this was like serious, like pretty messed up kind of stuff. And so I kind of started to relate to the final girl more, like Heather Langenkamp's character Nancy from Nightmare on Elm Street, or like Sidney Prescott's character from Scream, or and so I felt like it was just like you see the strength and the resiliency of being able to survive these situations and still being standing at the end. And that was inspiring to me because I felt like that's how I felt getting out of this thing. You know, it was so crazy. And so I wanted to kind of put that in there because there's a nuance to PTSD that's not always very clear. And sometimes like it can look scary. So that's why there's one character in the film where I wanted to build up a backstory about him or about this character where it's like, you know, but like when you're in that zone or that kind of tunnel, like I call it this kind of tunnel because sometimes like when you get triggered by things or whatever, and your sight kind of goes down to this one spot. And when I was teaching kids who would get into that, they would like, you know, they would kick anybody's butt who like just stood in front of them. And they, you know, because they were just such in fight or flight. And so I kind of wanted to have those themes kind of playing. And so even with our final girl, when she's triggered by what's happened at the beginning, it's almost like she survives because she is continually in that space of fight or flight where she's just this close to like just running that way, you know. And so I felt like that's, you know, and then to go to the villain stuff, I felt like I wanted to show, like when I look at like Jason from Friday the 13th, I'm like, he's just like Jaws in the woods, you know. It's not nothing interesting about it. He's just, and he does the breathing thing, and that's about it. I'm like, come on, like that's, and so I wanted something that was more true to the gaslighting and the manipulation and the you know, like props and lies and all of these things, because they're trying to get you to see something that's not real. But if that's all you see, it's kind of like becomes your reality. And so that's kind of where I wanted to come from, to where you have someone under the mask that's almost like Ted Bundy in a way, you know, versus like, I always kind of joke about this, but I was like, dude, if Scream was real, like one of those guys would have killed the other one at the end of the movie. Like,
yeah,
Billy would have killed Stu, because I mean, there's no way that Billy would have gone that far and left that open door there to like, you know, out him. So I feel like Billy would have killed Stu. You know, it makes no sense. So that's why with that one moment in the film, people have been shocked by it, but I'm like, that's exactly, you know.
yeah. That I know what moment you talk about, and that did get me, and I was just like, oh shit, like that was.
And I think it's fun because it's like, it's, you know, because again, that was the thing I kind of went back to with like, how do you make a slasher film? There's like 1,000 of them different. And that's the tough thing, because you've seen them all and everybody's seen them all. So everybody knows all the things. And so you're trying to figure out how to shift things around and while still kind of, you know, respecting what the slasher fans want to see. So not to put more blood in next time, but
yeah, was that because obviously there is gore, there is kills in the film. Was that something that you would have like preferred to have upped the ante on in terms of the gore, or was that, you know, because the kills are on screen, like I'm not saying that they're not on screen, so was that something that like you would have, is that like a budget thing? That, because I think looking at the film, it was beautiful to watch. I'll be honest, like it was absolutely, I thought the lighting was absolutely on point. I thought, you know, the cinematography was on point, and I thought the acting was on point, and the kills that we do see are really solid, and especially, I'm not going to spoil it, but that kill that we were just speaking about there, like that really like got me. I was like, oh shit. But was that, like you touched on there, would you have preferred to have a bit more gore, or was that?
No, you know? I think the thing for me was I was kind of going for the shock of it, because so like a part of it, the reason why I did some of the scenes, like there's one scene that kind of takes place in a wide shot where, you know, they're going out to talk to the guy, and then it's kind of revealed this thing, and then it just kind of instantly happens. And someone was like, oh, there's no cut in, but I never wanted to cut in, because part of what I wanted to show the audience is it wasn't even that moment. It was like the moment after, when this person is walking to this other person. You know, I almost want to say the thing, but I know it's so difficult. You know what I'm talking about. And they're like, this is the person that did it. You know, this is and to me, I wanted it to be where the audience sees what's happening, and there's no question at all who is doing it, but you're seeing them instantly gaslight the other character to show how insane gaslighting is.
Yeah.
Like you literally kill somebody and then you turn around like they're like that's the killer. And you're like, I just saw. And so I wanted the audience to also feel the same, like, holy crap kind of thing. And so I remember when we shot that scene on set, people were like, ooh, like that's, I think they started to get where I was coming from more with some of the stuff I'd been through, where they were like, wow, like, okay, this is making me see things differently now. And I think that's where, because I always go back to like Gone Girl, even though Gone Girl was like, there's some gory parts, but that moment when they're like in the bed and she kills him, and it kind of takes place in a wide a lot. Like there's a lot of cuts into the blood and stuff, but you see kind of in a wide shot where they're on the bed. There's something very shocking about that, I think. And it's almost to see violence like at a like here as opposed to close in. I think it's just more unnerving, you know.
Yeah. It did hit because when we watched it, it was kind of like one of those things where you expect it to cut away because you've got that kind of wide shot and you can see them, like, say, for example, fighting, and then the axe comes across and you're kind of like, oh, it's going to cut away, or it's going to be a cut away, then a close up or something. But it's like, it's not. It's like you're literally seeing it happen. Like the person is moving around, then the next minute they've gone bang in the back of the head, for example, or even in the front of the head in some of them. So it is effective, and I think it kind of sits with you in a strange way. Like it's not like where you're going, oh shit, for the guy. You're actually like kind of like, And now what you've said there about the whole PTSD and trauma and gaslighting, it actually totally makes sense, because I was just sitting there thinking, it just didn't sit, you just think, oh, that didn't sit right with me there, but that's that's what we're going for, the reaction.
The thing that was interesting was like with the first kill scene where like he shows up to the camp. A couple of things I thought were really funny was, one, it's like as an audience, like you know what's kind of going on here, but then you got Mario walking out there with like the mask on, and so I thought to me that seemed just so funny that he would be like, oh, screw you, dude, and he's like making fun of him, and you're like, wait. And then to instantly turn, and I think part of that goes back to the narcissism of the villain. And so like, because I think with like malignant narcissistic sociopaths, for more specifically, I think that there's like it's all about like power and control, and so like, and then I think there's a element of sadism to what they're doing too. Like, I remember when I was talking to like my person, I was like, can you just please stop being cruel to me for like 5 seconds or whatever. And that was like just invitation to, like twist it even more so. And so I felt like for this character behind the mask, it's like they're kind of getting off on that power that they have. And so to go in front of everybody and kill that guy, to me, that's like way more powerful than like, because now it's like everybody's like, no, like there's no safe zone ever. Like there's nothing here that's going to be, because if this is happening in front of all of us, with all of us here, it's like all bets are off. And so that's why I feel like, in Scream, they're always trying to like solve the Scooby-Doo mystery. I'm like, I don't think anyone cares about it. They just want to get the hell out of here, And so that's why I thought it would be, because then you have like these characters that might typically be strong or athlete, like the athlete or the jock or something. And this one, they're just so like, oh my God, like what the hell? There is none of that kind of cliched thing. They're just like,
they are seeing it. They are aware.
So that's kind of what I wanted to do, was just kind of go with that. And then, because again, going back to the psychology behind the mask, so Luzzo, who plays the under the mask, he kind of came from a dance background, and he did a lot of mask work. And I saw some other movies like My Bloody Valentine, and I think it's Peter Cowper, who's under the mask. He kind of came from a performance dance background too. So I wanted the character to have that physicality, because even in was it Richard Brooker, who played Jason in part 3 of Friday the 13th, there's a scene where he's in the barn and he starts throwing stuff around. And I was so impressed by his physicality, because I feel like Jason, we don't normally see that kind of thing. He's just like lumbering around, and then all of a sudden there's an axe in the air, and then and that's it. it's you don't see the explosive energy. So I wanted him to, like, you can always tell like there's someone thinking under that mask, you know, when they go into the kitchen and he looks over and he sees that stuff and he throws it over toward her. It's like I want to where, like, even if there's a mask, you can see someone's thinking there. And anyway,
and the killer is a fast-paced killer.
Oh,
which I always appreciate, to be honest. Usually, I mean, obviously, when I'm watching a slash film, I always just suspend my disbelief anyway, because it's, you know, one of those, that's part of the fun. But when I don't have to suspend my disbelief because the killer is fast as hell, like, that makes it just so much better. Was that like part of the process as well for you, like wanting to make him a fast killer?
Oh yeah, because I always go back to 28 Days Later, you know, when what was it? Danny Boyle. I remember seeing that in the theater, and I was like, no, like, just running. You're like, bro, you know, and I think there's just something to that that's really fun, and it lends to a sense of humor too. So there's a scene when Mario's being chased by the killer. He's just swearing his butt off.
Yeah,
I remember we shot that. We were just laughing every time we did the take, you know. And he's like, what do you think? I'm like, I think it's exactly what you would say.
Yeah.
You know, as this guy's chasing you, you know. And so it's just, so that one scene that we did outside of the dining hall when he attacks for the first time, and at the very end he looks up and the kind of like the haze drifts across the frame, and then you just see him turn his head and then he just runs that way. I remember when we shot that, we were like, oof, like, you know, he's going somewhere. And I think that's the thing that's scary, is that there's a sense of purpose to what's happening versus the randomness of killing, you know. So I think that to me seems scarier. I don't know.
Yeah, that's awesome. Mario was fantastic. He was he was actually my favorite character in the film. I thought he was absolutely hilarious.
Oh yeah, well, he's just so Miles. So Miles Valentine, who plays him, he's an actor that I've been wanting to work with for a while. He was local to Champaign, and I was like, man, I really want to work with you on this film. And it's just funny to go to the cast. I feel like, you know, everybody kind of just, I really like how they were in their characters. And so, you know, and then Miles, he was definitely always one of my favorites, I think. And and the guy who played Kelly, he was originally supposed to be Peter, but it was interesting because I felt like Peter is such a dork, you know, like I'm like he's kind of like me, like where it's like, you'll never get the girl, you're always try, but you'll never be cool, basically. So I thought it'd be funny to have, I'm like, I feel like you're just too good looking, cool to be Peter. So but thankfully he was really cool and kind of took one for the team and took on the Kelly role, because I feel like that's a critical role too. You know, but anyway, I'm kind of rambling right now. So.
No, that's cool. I was going to ask about the casting, because one thing, it's one of those, you know, not to kind of put, you know, lower budget indie horror into a box, but sometimes the acting in low budget indie horror can be questionable.
Yep.
But that to me is, again, sometimes part of the fun. Like my wife, we watch tons of low budget indie horror. It's like so fantastic. And well, she doesn't really appreciate it the same as I do, but I love it. And but what I will say is, to be honest, the acting in this film was solid. Like it didn't feel hammy. I thought it was actually really, really solid. So how did, and believable as well, and the characters felt, you know, like that's how they would act in real life. I don't think anyone, to be honest, really hit any duff notes. I thought it was really solid. So you know, top effort from everyone involved there. How did you go about casting these? Were they all local? Did you know who you wanted originally?
Yeah,
or?
It's kind of funny actually, because I went to go talk to, so there's this guy Aaron Munoz, who he was on The Walking Dead, and he played Barb's dad in season 2 of Stranger Things, but he teaches acting for camera at University of Illinois. And I heard that I was like, oh wow, really? Okay, well, I want to go talk to him, because I kind of modeled our production after Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where we weren't in a major film city or like a film hub, you know, like Chicago or LA or Atlanta. So we have to be more creative about how we find things. And so I looked at Texas Chainsaw, and they were like, well, they went to a lot of the UT Austin, like theater program and stuff. And so I kind of went to talk to Aaron about, like, who would you recommend for casting for these characters or whatever. And so we talked, but the funniest thing was I went to go talk to him at the Cranard Center, and I got on this elevator out of the garage to go up to his level. And this guy got on with me wearing this blue coveralls, carrying a big kitchen knife. He looked exactly like Michael Myers without the mask. And I just started laughing because I'm like, what are the odds that I'm going to go talk to someone about a slasher movie, and this guy literally gets on with me looking like Michael Myers.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't know what that meant. Like I went to Aaron. I'm like, okay, like this just happened. And this sounds like I made it up, but it was the most crazy thing. But he kind of came at with like, oh, well, these characters would be really good. I'm like, well, this is, so he kind of helped me a lot with kind of, and then it was just a matter of kind of getting people, we did some read-throughs with the group and just seeing how they worked. And then I think with that scene in the forest where Lexi and Peter are walking and talking, I tested some actors where we would just walk down the back of my alley behind my house doing that scene over and over again, because I knew it was funny, but I wasn't sure if I was getting the right chemistry. And then I finally found like Wyatt, who plays Peter, and then Jenna, who plays Lexi. And I was like, their chemistry was really good, because I felt like he's kind of an endearing character, but he's kind of a dork, and I think that she's just kind of humoring him sometimes. And I feel like Peter is very much like me, where I'm always rambling about things, trying to be funny, but I'm, just, and the girl's like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever, so it's just kind of funny. But those scenes, it was fun to see them start to actually come out. And then the guy who plays Moose, this guy, Rico, he was from Chicago. He just had a bunch of funny videos that he would make online where he would be like different people talking to each other. And I just laughed at his stuff. So I was like, God, I hope he wants to be in this film. So I think we had just lucked out in a way with the cast, because they were really great. And like the stuff that Luzzo did, to me, it's funny because I realized I'd edited the film for like 14 months. And at no point did I ever think of him under the mask at all, or under the mask at all. So it was really cool. So,
Awesome. Yeah. Now, I've been looking forward to hearing this particular story, and we've been talking on Messenger, setting all this up, and so basically you told me on Messenger that someone tried to steal the movie. Like they came in with like, they were kind of like con artists and tried to steal the movie. So can you tell me what
Sure.
was going on there? Because I've honestly been looking forward to this story ever since you sent me the screenshot. So I'll just let you have the floor. So let me know what happened there.
It was kind of insane. So, because I was raising a lot of money on my own, and then I kind of like met this guy who was doing he did a lot of shows, like reality streaming shows, and I talked to him, and he mentioned he was executive producing a horror film. I'm like, oh, I didn't know you do that. And I'm like, well, I'm working on one myself too. And he's like, oh, cool. And he said, I think I know these guys that might be really, that might be helpful to throw some money in. And so I met with them on Zoom. We were talking, and I was telling them about my vision for the film, and they're like, oh, it sounds great, and like, oh, we'd love to like do this, and we're going to give you like $50,000 for your movie, which to me was like someone just gave me like $1 million, because it's like I've always just had to like, shoot whatever with whatever budget I had, and so to me it was just, I just remember I was in tears, because it's like like when your dream is going to happen and someone's telling you they believe in you to where they're going to help you make your dream happen. So it was like a couple of weeks where I was like, I can't believe this is amazing. And then it was like 2 weeks before, I'm like, hey, what's going to happen with this money, because we're about to go into filming, and it'd be nice to know that this money's coming so we can take care of some business, whatever. Like, oh, we're just working on the legal, we got to get all that stuff tight before we send you the money. I'm like, okay. Then the week before, I'm like, okay, what's going on here? Like da 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 da. And they're like, oh, they're still working on it. And they're like, oh, hey, John, we're going to send you legal now. It's going to look kind of scary at first, but don't worry, because this is kind of normal kind of stuff. And so 4 days before we're supposed to shoot, they send me 2 forms. One is a chain of title, which establishes that I own everything on the film, all the IP and everything. And the other one was this thing called the copyright mortgage guarantee, which they talked about like it was this thing called completion bond, where like if you work with, if you work with actors that are known to be kind of, a little bit difficult or, don't always follow through, it protects your investors. And so I was on this chain email with like the investors and then their lawyer. And I was like, hey, are you talking about a completion bond? Because that's not what this is. And then the lawyer chimed in and she's like, we know you don't have a completion bond, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, wow, okay, thanks. So anyway, when I'm looking and I'm reading this document, it basically transfers all of the IP to them. They would own it. And we would just basically shoot a glorified sizzle reel for them. Because the other thing that they didn't tell me, which I found out later when I read an article, because I knew the guy's name and his last initial and then the production company. And so then one day I was talking to these other producers out of California to see about maybe helping us finish the film. And I discovered, this guy had a 3-year, 10-picture, $100 million deal with Netflix. I mean, it was so crazy, you know? And so I kind of assumed that he was basically going to we would go shoot it. He would take it to Netflix and like pitch them on this movie. And then they would shelve what we did. And then they would take Netflix money and make it like on a legit scale or whatever. And so it was just crazy. So basically, I can share you it was just, so I told them, like basically like, this is not going to work, So, and the funniest thing was the last thing that the guy wrote in his email. He's like, John, we're not asking you to trust us. We're asking you to trust the $50,000 that we're going to send to you. And normally this stuff takes there's lots of stipulation to this money stuff. And my friend who actually produces a lot of films for like Shudder and stuff, he's like, usually that comes with a few more zeros behind it. But anyway, the funniest thing was at the very end of it, the guy said, truth be told, I really believe in this film. I feel it will do extremely well. And so I just kind of did that I didn't answer it. I just kind of let that like drop and echo into the room. And I was like, all right, thank you very much for the vote of confidence. And so that night I had an emergency meeting with the cast and the crew. And I was like, hey, we just lost all this money. Can you guys afford to be on this film for like 2 to 3 weeks? And, we had a $16,000 Kickstarter. We had a Kickstarter that was still kind of wrapping up. And we made like $16,000 off of that. And then I had 4 or 5K investors. And then one of the guys that I shot a lot of commercials for, he was kind of going behind the scenes and trying to get more money for us. And then I had a lot of money from my savings that I put into the film. And so basically that night, we just kind of put it to a vote. And everybody said, let's just do it. And so we went out there and we had the Kickstarter basically just covered all of our food and kind of incidentals and stuff. So we were able to get through the shoot. And then I basically just started taking on tons of like side gigs and paying everybody in installments. So I think I paid out like $23,000 last year in rates.
Yeah.
And then I still got a little bit to go, but it was just, I think the coolest thing was like, all the crew kind of came out of that workshop that I did. And I think we just all kind of like rallied around it. And that was great. Yeah. It was really frustrating. It was extremely stressful. I was a total wreck basically going into production. I was like, I think one day I was so mad because the guys like brought a crane like the wrong direction. I like kicked this apple box. I just completely lost my mind, I think, for a little while there. But I think it's just, it's definitely helped me to kind of see that there is a definite predatory side to film industry that you have to watch out for because distributors and people will take advantage, if you don't know all of those things. So it's just so much. And then those guys who try to rip us off, they were under investigation by the SEC for defrauding seniors out of their retirement savings.
Oh man.
Like $67 million.
Like on Better Call Saul.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So it was kind of insane. So I just was like, well, but it was funny because some days we would be on set I'd be like, hey guys, these guys try to rip off our movie. Isn't it cool that we're on this film that people try to steal? And
Yeah. And came out the other end
yeah,
with the finished product. So
yeah.
yeah,
So I always joke, it's like I'd love to make this film like just really hit because I just want to
yeah.
piss those guys off for ripping us off.
Absolutely. Well,
And
like I say, anyone from I think I said it in our message that anyone who has like the balls to go out there and actually do it and make the magic and make the movie, like I've just got nothing but respect, and especially if you've already gone through all this shit with this with these people as well, that's just adds fuel to that fire that we just want the movie to. I mean, we want all, especially me
oh,
on the podcast. I want all indie horror to do extremely well.
yeah.
And I feel like we're in kind of a bit of a golden age of indie horror at the moment,
Yeah,
to be honest. I think there's
I think so. It's interesting.
phenomenal.
Yeah, because I went to AFM, the American Film Market. My dogs are up, but it was interesting to talk to distributors because they were talking about like they're all looking for the next Terrifier 2. But I was like, I remember these one guys were talking to me about, oh, we're trying to find the Terrifier 2. I'm like, I could kind of laughed because I'm like, that's an anomaly because you're talking about a film from someone who has worked 16 years to make it to that point, because it was like a short, and All Hallows Eve, and then Terrifier, and then now Terrifier 2. So that's a lot of hard work to get there, and then sometimes it's like, even with like Skinamarink, I think is such a fascinating case, because I was joking with someone, it's like, I would never think to make a movie like that in a million years, but it's kind of crazy that that person was able to kind of stay true to their vision, and then it's out there doing stuff. So I think it's like, I agree. I think this is absolutely like a golden age for indie horror again. I mean, the fact that even films are going to the theaters now, and
yeah, definitely,
it's kind of wild. So I think, it's exciting. I think because I guess what I feel is like, I feel like the alternative has been for the last 10 years is like Marvel movies, like $150 million budgets. Like you can't even compete with that. But I think the freedom to make indie film, especially horror, it's like it's exciting again.
Yeah, definitely. And theaters are starting to have confidence in them as well, I think. Like obviously Terrifier 2 was just this crazy thing, but I just said there, it was like Damien has worked for 16 years on that franchise, and I feel like built up a fan base on that franchise, and obviously Terrifier 1 got a lot of eyes in it over a long period of time. So like the film came out in 2016 and did pretty well, but then over the course of those 3 years, which is kind of what I say to me, I like love Terrifier and Damien and everything that those guys do, but I've recommended that film to loads of people, and then they've recommended that film to loads of people, and then it's kind of just been this crazy knock-on effect that now everyone has seen Terrifier, and then Terrifier 2 came out, and then all those people at once went to see Terrifier 2, and it became this absolutely insane thing. Yeah, it's just I honestly don't think that is replicatable. If that's the word. It's insane.
No, I don't think so either. And I think that's the thing that people don't get is like some of these films are anomalies and they're trying to make this other thing happen. But I'm like, the magic of making that film happen is you can't repeat that. And so I think like I couldn't go back and try to do our film again. I don't think I'd want to because I was, I lost like 10 pounds or whatever. And I was, like we were like up all, I mean, we were like, because we were there for like 13 days. So we did like 2 days that were like 8 to 8. And then we were doing splits from like 2 to 2. And then the rest of the time we were like 6 to 6. And every day, like I had like my lighting diagrams out there. We were talking about like, okay, guys, like we do our set meetings every day. This is what we're doing. Take a photo of the lighting diagram so you guys know where everything is going. Because we were literally carrying generators out through the forests. Like there's a bridge sequence where we're on the suspension bridge over a river. We had to carry all that stuff like a mile through the woods, hiking all that stuff out there.
Yeah.
Because it was just, there was no roads to these locations. So so I remember like I think we were supposed to be there all night, but I think we got what we needed. And I was like, let's wrap, guys. Like, and they're like, well, we still got time to shoot some more. I'm like, no, really. Like, this is all, you guys have worked really hard. Let's reward ourselves for getting ahead. Yeah. I could see their faces were just like, because I think that was the thing was like, you don't always know the scale of the film that you have written until you're there on set and you're seeing like, oh my God, like this is huge. And I think that was because you would think like one location, it's a camp, but really it's like 80 different locations.
Mm.
And then it's Night Force exterior. And so it was a lot. I think the first night that we shot, I think everybody realized just like what we were up against.
Yeah.
And like the scale of it, because we didn't have like condors. So we had like a whole system for night lighting, but it was really intense. And we finally got kind of a system for communicating down, but it was like that first night, I remember everybody was like in shock, like this sucks. But they were great though. So yeah.
Yeah, and the whole film is pretty much shot at night. So did you find? And I will say as well, I think I touched on it earlier, that the film is very well lit, and that sometimes, again, and I'm not putting it in the box, but sometimes indie horror, especially night scenes, that can be incredibly dark. You're a bit like, what's kind of going on there?
Yeah.
I have to knock my light off in the living room where we have the TV. It's kind of like, oh yeah, I can see what's happening there. Didn't have that problem with this film. It was just I could see everything, the blues, the smoke. It's very well done. So kind of lost my train of thought there, but I was thinking, was that a challenge? Filming all at night and trying to get that lighting, on point like it was.
Well, we did some exercises kind of prior to filming, where we would go out to like these forest preserves, and we would set up the generators, and we would kind of go through. And I remember specifically one where it was like inside of a car talking to someone, and I was like, okay, we're going to turn that light off over there and shoot it, and then we're going to add that light back in, and then now you can see the difference. And that's, you see it all the time, but like, you don't get a sense of the place. And I wanted the camp to feel like a character too. So because I want that immersive sense of like the crickets at night and the cicadas and all of that. And I feel like it just adds to that sense of isolation. Like no one is coming to help you. And you feel like if you're just in a black box, we could have shot that in the back of a studio. And different, so that's why I wanted the same thing. And so we looked at like the first season of Stranger Things and how they shot, because there's a lot of night force, when they're going around the forest at night trying to find what's his face. And so we would kind of study that stuff, and I was like, okay, they're lighting in layers, and so that's what we're gonna do. And so it was just that's just a big thing for me. And then we had like this tube of death that was like this massive hose that we would pump like haze through. And I remember it's like inevitably you find yourself on a set asking for like the most ridiculous thing, because it's like we lit this huge massive field where towards the end they're like running up through, and then they go through like these trees. I want it to feel like The Shining, right?
Yeah.
And we lit it, and it was like beautiful. All the fog was just like, the whole thing was filled with fog. And then we get ready to shoot, and I look up and it's like all gone. I'm like, where'd my and they're like, well, there's the wind, John. I'm like, oh yeah, right. Yeah. But I feel like you're always like trying to like get people to do like something that's completely impossible, and you're wondering why it's not happening. You're like, what? Where'd my wind go? So like it's just it's just funny. But no, the cast was amazing. I think that it was literally like guys that came out of like my like workshop, and none of us were like, this was probably for many of them was the first time they'd ever set a foot on like a real set, and so it was kind of wild, just what we were able to do, so yeah.
It looks, I know, like I say, it looks
thanks,
very professional, very good. And I was not, I don't know how to say this, not surprised, because obviously I watched a lot of indie horror, but I was surprised at how well it was there. I thought it was very,
thanks,
very on point. Thanks. Massive well done for that one. I thought it was brilliant. But the film is set in 91. Well, the first scene is 86. The opening of the film is set in 86. Then we go 5 years later, 1991. So what was kind of the inspiration for choosing 1991? Is that a particular favorite year for you? Was there a reason behind that? Or
Well, it's interesting. I was originally going to set it in 1994. That was when I graduated high school, and so when we shot the sizzle reel for it, like the summer before we shot the movie, if you look at the styles of everybody in the film, like there's people are wearing like, like a band t-shirt with like a thermal. And that was like what we used to wear all the time. Like when I was in high school, cause I would go to shows all the time, see bands play and stuff. And, but then we moved it kind of back like someone was like, why don't you shoot it like kind of earlier, like around like early, like late 80s. And then I thought 91 would be great because it's kind of the end of the era of the 80s, but there's that weird, it's like you're still seeing styles from the 80s, and then there's the 90s coming. And so, and I kind of looked at what was happening in 91, and I was like, well, that'd be a really interesting year because there's at the same year you had Guns N' Roses, you had Metallica's Black Album, you had Red Hot Chili Peppers, Blood Sugar Sex Magic, and then you had Nirvana's Nevermind album, which I thought was such a, like just a ground changing, like a world changing kind of moment. And so I thought, well, that'd be cool because I feel like it's the end of that 80s innocence, so like even in the 86 thing, they're kind of playing up the corniness of 80s movies a bit. In the 90s, you can start to feel that kind of sense of like the angst or whatever, where they used to call it grunge or something. But so there's actually some nods to the one scene at the end is actually like the nod to the Nevermind cover.
Okay. Yeah.
And you see it, it's like with the baby and the thing. So anyway, but there's but I just think it is kind of, I just feel like the 80s have been done so much. And like, I think with the ideas I have for the sequel, I think that we'll get even more into the 90s culture of the time, because the sequel idea I have for it is going to kind of be a parallel timeline sequel that happens the same night, but kind of takes place away from the camp. And so I wanted to kind of go through the mom and pop indie video stores of the 90s, and even go through like the basement indie band, like kind of college parties at the time. And just have that kind of when you get more money, you can put more money towards production. And so I wanted to have more of that, I think. So, but yeah, it's awesome.
Well, that's kind of a cool idea because the movie is called Final Summer, so it's cool that if the sequel takes place on the same night, it's still that final summer,
right? People are like always like, oh, what about like final fall or final winter? I'm like, no, dude, like I can't do that, But like, no, I think. Yeah, because what is the other alternative? It's like, a couple of years later, the story picks up and it's everybody's in therapy. And I'm like, well, I've seen that. And so the sequel, I'm excited because I feel like there's some interesting crossovers with this one too. So like in this one, you've actually heard our final girl in the next one. So in the next one, when it goes to those scenes, you're kind of on the opposite side of what is happening at the camp. So I think that'd be kind of fun in a way, where you're like, oh man, like, whoa, that's holy cow, like we're here again, but it's a different thing, Awesome. So, anyway, so
no, that's cool. So what is the plan there? Are you going to do another Kickstarter, or how long do you think that'll be till that's kind of out there?
Yeah, so I think so I think I'm planning on doing an Indiegogo this fall, probably mid-September and run up towards like Halloween or something. And then, so I think we kind of do something similar, which is shoot the sizzle reel for the next one. So there's a scene in it that the sizzle reel is going to be kind of like one full kind of scene from the next film. And then, obviously just kind of like a lot of the kind of like the sizzle reel kind of shots of the, the violence and all that stuff. And then basically I'm kind of planning on next summer, 2024 is to shoot that. So obviously this all is depending on if the film gets out there and we develop an audience. But I kind of feel like I was very inspired by Terrifier 2, or even like go back to like Sam Raimi's Evil Dead and then Evil Dead 2, where it's like they didn't have a lot of money for that first one, but he kind of took all the lessons he learned from that and came back and really hit the ground running.
Yeah.
Because that's what I feel with this I feel like we learned so much on this one. We were able to pull off a lot while under like insane stress and lack of money and sleep and all this other stuff. And so I feel like there's things I want to, it's like to be able to kind of approach a film again without all the insane crap.
Yeah.
24 hours like before. You're like, I'd love to do a film without having to worry about are we going to eat and,
Yeah. Well, you surely can't be like any more kind of crazy than the shoot for this one.
Oh my God.
It's going to be like shit. You've been through the mill. You've been through the mill with it already. This is going to be smooth for the second time.
I mean, I've been on sets where it's like you go on set and like the director's back at the monitor drinking a latte. Like, yeah, maybe we can do this thing here. And I'm just like, that would be a dream, you know, to like, we were carrying like lights and combos and C-stands all through the thing. I was operating, and I mean, it was madness, but I don't think I would do it any other way. Cause I always say like, you only got one shot at making a first film. And there's so many things you probably will never get a chance to do again if you make a second film. So I feel like it's just, if you're ever going to go for it, might as well go for it on your first one. So
sure, yeah, it's the mad world of indie horror. Like I just think I just love that, and that's one of the reasons why I really love indie horror, is that the community around it, the people who make the movies, the actors, they are just so invested in for the love of, you know, making the indie horror film. And there's just something magic about indie horror that I think is different to any other kind of genre, you know. It's just the passion, and I love it all. And like, part of the fact that, like you say, you're lumping everything around is it feels like part of the magic of it all, you know. Low budget and just awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Oh man, yeah. I should probably. Yeah, I don't know. Any other questions you had at all?
Yeah, well, I've got a few. Yeah. I was going to say about the poster. So the poster, I put it on the Instagram yesterday, and it got like quite a lot of traction. To be honest, it's really eye-catching poster. Who came up with the poster? Because I feel like for an indie horror film, the way to get people watching is a great poster, like get people through the door. And you've got a great poster. So how did that come about?
It was, well, I saw a poster for Halloween Ends that really caught my attention, and it was Michael Myers kind of mask, and it had this cool like neon triangle under it. And I was like, who is doing that? Because it felt so much like from the 80s, and all of the posters that I kind of grew up with. You know, as a kid, you look at the poster and it's like kind of telling you this story about this crazy, like this amazing, like incredible film of all this madness and stuff. And so there's this guy, Creepy Duck. His name is Coleman. I think he's actually from the UK, but I just kind of reached out to him. I was like, hey, you know, like da 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 da. And he's like, oh yeah, totally. And I was like, oh, thank God, because I really want to do a poster with you, because you're exactly what I want for the film, you know. And so we started talking, and we just started talking a lot about, I would share posters from movies like Alone in the Dark and all these other, a lot of Matthew Fear, who did or Matthew Peak, I think, who did the Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Warriors poster, you know, just like that kind of evocative, like the colors and everything. And so then we just kind of started working back and forth and kind of talking. And then he needed like some high res stills, and we didn't really have any because we shot like on anamorphic, and there's a softness there. So like me and my friend went to Shatterglass, and on their green screen, I was just like at this point I had no money to have an actor come down and pay them at all. So I just got the mask on, and I'm like swinging the axe around and all that stuff. But the one that he used, I remember I was like, oh, there's this poster from a Blumhouse movie called The Town That Dreaded Sundown, where like the guy's like kind of looking from the back, and he does his head turn, and I was like, oh, we got to do that pose. And so we did it, and that was the one he liked. I'm like, of course, you know. So
yeah.
But when I saw it, I was like, oh, dude, like,
yeah. I mean, the poster is honestly, it's gorgeous, and I love a great poster for indie horror. I think like that sells the movie straight away, and the poster is just like on point. And I feel like that's going to get a lot of people in for you as well, like just to see the poster, really going, it looks a total throwback, and like I say, it's absolutely incredible.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's what I wanted to, because I always wanted the film to feel like a lost franchise from the 80s was the thing. And so that went from the poster to the name to the even like the mask being simple, you know, and then also like to go to the end credits song. So there's my friend Jeff Schroeder, he plays in the Smashing Pumpkins. And so I did a music video for his other band called Night Dreamer, and it's called The Taste. And when I heard that song, I'm like, oh man, this song should be like an end credit song for a movie or something. And so originally we were going to have him do this song by Pat Benatar called Shadows of the Night, because I felt like that represented, the Final Girl. But when you have like no more money left, you're like, hey, Jeff, what do you think about this song? And so
Yeah.
he gave it to us because I go back to like Alice Cooper, Man Behind the Mask, and like, Dokken's Dream Warrior, and that's stuff that Jeff loves too. Like we always talk about Dokken and stuff, and just I wanted a song that had that power of that. And so like when he was like, yeah, sure, you can use the song. I was like, this is amazing because I want that anthem of that rock anthem, from that time. And so
that's an awesome end credit song as well. I will say that was one of the things I was going to say, because obviously Jeff is in the Smashing Pumpkins, one of the biggest bands in the world. So, do you know them through like your previous musical experience, or is that like just?
I kind of met him. I was working on doing a music documentary, and I just kind of met him through a mutual friend, and we just started talking. And he's like, "Oh, do you need music for the doc?" And so I'm like, this is great.
Yeah.
So then we just started kind of becoming friends, and then I did 2 music videos for him, and then kind of over COVID, I actually did like for Sweet Relief. He sent me some footage to kind of edit together into like a kind of more of a performance video, because at the time everybody was like opposite. So I did a Joy Division Disorder. It was like him and then Mark Lanigan from Screaming Trees, and then I did one with like Peter Hook for Ceremony, and that was like, I mean, that's like, I love Joy Division, and then I love New Order. And so I remember when he asked me if I would do it, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, okay.
Yeah.
And so I remember like editing the video, and I was like pogoing in my basement. And I remember like because I love that movie, 24 Hour Party People, where it's like you see them in the studio with Martin Hannett, and the guy's like playing drums. Studio, and he's still there playing drums. And then I thought of Factory Records and how I wanted the video for Ceremony to feel like you were at the Hacienda, like in Birmingham, and Manchester. Yeah. And all of the lighting and everything. And so it was a total dream. And so yeah, I just kind of like worked with them. And then I did some stuff with the Smashing Pumpkins, like another one of those like COVID shoots where like I shot Jimmy Chamberlain playing, and then it was for like the Tonight Show or something. But yeah, it was just kind of, like, it's like a dream a little bit, So that's
awesome. Cool.
But yeah,
that is awesome. Like they're working with some of the biggest bands, like that's the dream, really. So and I was going to ask as well, because you've got Tom Matthews in Final Summer as well, Friday the 13th alumni. Love Tom Matthews. How did you? And somebody else as well, actually, which I will ask about as well, Tom Atkins.
Oh, yeah. Do you mind if I use the restroom real quick?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no problem.
Just 1 second. Sorry.
Yeah, cool. So I was asking about Tom Matthews, and he's involved in Final Summer. And I suppose we'll start on him before we get to Tom Atkins. How did you get Tom Matthews involved? Because having him in a Cam Slasher film is kind of a stamp of approval in a way, really, from horror fans.
Well, it was interesting because originally, I get like the kind of paradox of being a first-time filmmaker for feature is that like no one knows who you are, and so no one's really willing to take a chance on you, unless And so like originally, I reached out to like Kane Hodder, and actually his agent said he would do it, but it was like way too much. So I was like, I can't do that. Even though one of the characters in the film is basically based on his story. So the Warren Copper character actually is based on, if you ever seen the documentary with Kane Hodder, where he talks like how he was burned and he had a lot of
yeah.
And so I kind of based the Warren Copper character on seeing that documentary of him, because I thought, wow, it's like that's a different side of him I didn't even think about. But anyway, but he was just kind of beyond my budget level, And then so then reached out to a bunch of other actors, and finally got into Neil Affleck from My Bloody Valentine. So he was originally going to be in the film, but then because of COVID and some visa stuff, then he just couldn't do it. And so finally I'm like, well, and you always kind of like look for actors who maybe haven't done things in a while. And so I'm like, well, Tom Matthews, that would be kind of cool, because he was Tommy Jarvis, and he was in, like a fan favorite of the Friday films. So I reached out to him and talked to his agent, and then he seemed to be interested. I was like, oh my God, like what? And so he said he would do it. And then I was like, oh, this is awesome. And then a sheer panic fell over me because I was like, oh man, we have to be like, show up, like professional when he comes there. And so that was really great. But I really like working with him a lot because he, again, like when you work with actors who've been doing it for a long time, they're just a language that they have for like a cinematic language where they kind of understand focal lengths and their shot size and like kind of just the whole physicality of their performance. So that was really exciting because I like to work with, because I love film. And so anytime I can work with someone at that level, it's exciting because I feel like it's fun to speak that language,
Yeah.
So he was cool. He wasn't, and I think like I realize now, although I don't think it would have really worked for the story because it wasn't necessarily the story, but I probably would have had him more in the film, but I kind of wanted to set him up as like this Tommy Lee Jones, like the sheriff from No Country for Old Men kind of thing. So, so at the, so I wanted his character to be kind of like the last character you would see in the film too. Like as a fellow fan, I feel like that would be a cool fan moment too, where it's like they can see him like the last guy on the screen kind of thing, but he was great. But yeah, so if he kind of has already agreed to like come back for the second one, and the second one he'll have a much bigger part.
Awesome.
So I'm excited for that. And then no, it was I just think like it was really, like you said, it was helpful to have him on because I feel like that added a little bit more legitimacy.
Yeah.
Like I see people in comments be like, whoa, is that Tom Matthews? I'm like, yeah.
Well, I think he's in it, to be fair, a pretty respectable amount. I don't think it's noticeably short or anything like that. He's in it a respectable amount. I mean, he's not going to be, the main camp counselor kind of character. But what he does play is really solid, and he's on screen a good while. And I say ends the film on a nice note as well when we see him there again. So that's awesome to hear he's in the second one.
Oh yeah, because the second one, the third act of the second one, he's a big part in that. I mean, the sequel will kind of follow. There's like kind of like the final girl story, and then there's this alternate story that I would compare to like, I was Seven with like Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman's character, where they're kind of searching down this mystery because the whole thing really is kind of like I go back to like surviving like a psychopath kind of thing. It's like all of their lies and manipulations. And so you tend to see, until you kind of get away from it, to see that it's like lies and manipulation. You're always trying to figure it out. Like none of this makes sense. There's pieces that don't add up. I like every night I'd go to sleep and like, well, wait a second, that would happen for like a year, and 2 years beyond that. But like, so I think like, it's almost like when you think you've solved the puzzle, you realize you were only looking at one side of the puzzle. And then it's like this Rubik's Cube. And so I wanted it to have, so really it's like what you're seeing right now is almost like one side of this Rubik's Cube. And then by the second one, I think it's even more crazy. We're like, what is happening kind of thing. So, but yeah. And then that leads us into Tom.
Tom Atkins. There it is.
Let me see if he's, all right.
Oh, that is awesome. Because I was going to ask, like, what happened to the painting? Because I said to him, I was like, oh, it's Tom Atkins. Like, one of my most cherished. Like, he is a horror treasure. He's like a Hollywood treasure. Like, that man is just, protect Tom Atkins at all costs.
Oh, I know. Yeah. No,
how did this happen? How did this come about?
Well, it's funny. Well, I would have loved to give him I just felt like, just with kind of he's getting up there in age, and I think it would just been very unsafe. Like I didn't want to risk, like killing Tom, or that's but like, with COVID, and it was very, we were in the middle of it. So, but he did. But I thought, because I always love Easter eggs in movies, and I always feel like if you can throw Easter eggs in the background for the fans who are paying attention, and so it's fun to watch the movie with an audience because every time we get to that shot, everybody's like, oh man, like so I reached out to his agent. I was like, hey, what do you think about if he was the in a painting in the film or whatever,
Oh,
Oh, sorry. There you are.
you're back. No, you just kind of cut off there. Sorry, you completely cut
sorry.
off. It was just very odd. Like it just froze and then cut off.
That's okay. I can start again. I could just say, Tom Atkins was kind of always my favorite from the 80s. I mean, like Halloween 3, me and my friends would joke and we'd always say, like, what would Tom Atkins do? And so he was like our spirit animal in a way. And and then like Night of the Creeps, I think, is another one he was in. And I just kind of liked him. And then he was the sheriff in the reboot of the My Bloody Valentine 3D, so it's just, or not the sheriff, but he was like one of the guys, I think. But so that was kind of cool because I think it's like just anytime you can throw Tom Atkins in the background somewhere, that's pretty fun.
Yeah. So I think you cut off just as you were talking about you contacted his agent as well to check that I've been in the painting. So how did he just say yes straight away after that?
Well, I kind of just described like kind of what the idea was for his part in the film, because it's really just, it's kind of like within the legacy of the family, they're kind of like, I based basically the family on like the Trumps or whatever. And so like his character is almost like a Fred Trump, where he's like just this is going to sound funny, but like, but kind of the patriarch of this family that is just legacies of corruption and crime, stuff like that. Yeah. And so I just felt like, he's kind of the kind of where it all originates from, in a way. And so he's like the big bad of this entire thing, and so I wanted it to be, I feel like I just gave away the entire plot for the whole trilogy, but like
no, it's a mistake is there.
Yeah. And I just felt like it was something where I wanted to have that legacy and the connection to the past, because I felt like he's such a important part of horror, and especially like just the films and the roles he played. I tried to get Adrienne Barbeau to be the mom. So in a photo, you were also going to see her photo, but I think they just somehow I just got lost in the shuffle, because I did talk to her agent and they were like, "Oh yeah, totally, let's do it," and then it just never came through or whatever. So, but that's it's maybe I'll save that for the sequel, because Adrienne Barbeau is another one where like she was in The Fog. I think Tom Atkins was also in The Fog. Dean Cundy, John Carpenter. So I think it's just more connections to the past. And then same with like the name of Camp Silver Lake is kind of a nod to Nick Castle, who played the Shape in the original Halloween. But he made this film that I really liked as a kid called The Last Starfighter. And in the movie, like they're going to this place called Silver Lake. And so I wanted it to be like, oh yeah, like they go to Silver Lake. And just the way my brain works, I was like, oh yeah, it's like a nod to, even though it's like, Camp Crystal Lake, you could but that wasn't really my intention so much as it was as a fun way to kind of throw a nod to Nick Castle.
Yeah.
But I don't think anyone got that. So
you've got this incredible piece of artwork there of Tom Atkins, which no one in the world will have. So it's that is absolutely beautiful, fantastic. And I was wondering before we came on, I was like, what happened to that painting? And obviously it's there in your house. So that is absolutely awesome. That is awesome. So how can people? When do you anticipate people being able to see the film? Because it's had festival appearances last year, and how do you think people will see the film this year?
Yeah, we'll be going to streaming this summer. So we did get distribution in December, and we're just kind of working through all of that right now. They're actually like in Berlin this week at the European Film Market, kind of getting. So I think we were talking. There's a couple, like a distributor from UK that they were talking to. So I would say probably by summer we'll be into streaming, and I've got a few more festivals to go to. So I think there's. Horror Hound is the next big one in Cincinnati, and then there's a few more. I'd love to get into like a Macabro in Mexico City, but we actually played at a Cine Excess, and then there was a Dead of Night festival, I think in Liverpool.
Yes,
yeah, and that was like an earlier, rougher cut of the film too. So
I was so annoyed. I was so close to going to Dead of the Night, so I think I said in my message, literally like I looked to get tickets, and then I think there was only like one ticket available. I was like,
Oh,
do
wow.
I just go on my own? And then when I actually thought, nah, screw it, I'm just going to go on my own, it'd gone. So I was like, I was so gutted. And then, so yeah, I would have been able to see it sooner.
Yeah.
But so you're doing some more festivals. Are you doing convention appearances in like for the movie as well?
Mainly just as part of the film festival. So I don't think we're quite to that level yet of like, people don't really know me, which is cool too. I kind of like going in and just, I don't know. I don't like the red carpet stuff too much. I just like to be, I'm very indie film. I always came from indie bands, and I like, I'm not a big LA kind of a Velvet Rope person at all. So I just like, it's just fun to just be with everybody and that stuff. And no, so, but yeah, I think we are going to do like a camp. We're going to do a screening at the camp next fall for Halloween, actually. So I got the actual camp. So I'm excited about that.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. That's very like very Myers House-esque and that kind of thing.
Oh yeah. Like you're watching it, you're like,
yeah, that's literally over there. Yeah.
It's a good idea anymore, Like this is fun, and then the film ends, and you're like walking back to your car, like,
yeah. You should get someone like there dressed up as the killer as well, like hiding in the trees or something, or jumping out.
I thought about doing that we did like 4 days at the theater in town here, and we did a drive-in premiere opposite Halloween's actually. And I was thinking about running around the drive-in dressed as like the killer just for a laugh, but I was like, maybe I don't want to do that because I don't know if people really need to have that kind of experience, But it was fun.
Maybe it holds.
Maybe when they're expecting that, not like, because of some of the other things that have happened in the country. But like, I remember I went to like the third night of the thing. I dressed up like the character at the beginning of the film who was telling the story, and I remember I kind of walked in, and this girl started looking. She's like, "Did you make this movie?" I'm like, "Oh yeah." She's like, "Wow,"
Yeah.
I'm like,
that's awesome.
I just felt like if they were gonna go out to the theater to watch my movie, I should be there too, So
yeah, that's fantastic. And obviously, what a great thing as well. Like I always think the movies out there, like you have a movie that no one can ever take that away. No one can ever take away the effort, the passion, the sacrifice, and then the movie's out there forever. Which I just think I would love to do something like that. I mean, I wouldn't be able to, but I just I just think it'd be maybe one day. You never know.
Why not? What are you gonna do? Because I think the thing to go to, like maybe the final thing to talk about is just with indie film, man. All the things that people are always like, oh man, like, so I I started on this in like 2019, and I can't tell you how many times I would go to like different people who are producers or filmmaker friends and ask them for help or this and that and the other thing. And the thing that I've kind of learned is like, no one's ever going to care about your film as much as you do. And so if you kind of understand that going in, I think that kind of helps when no one does show up, the money doesn't come in, the crew bails or what, I had like a near mutiny in the middle of the shoot, and so I think it's good to kind of get that in your head, because I think so many people would be like, oh, I've got this great idea. I need a producer and, $1 million. I'm like, yeah, so does everybody, but that's not going to happen. And there's a great South by Southwest, this keynote speech by like Mark Duplass, and they talk about how the cavalry is not coming, and how like you and your friends are your cavalry. And I think that's the best thing to really take to heart is like, one, like no one's ever going to believe in your film as much as you do. So that's fine. I think adopt that right away and just learn everything you possibly can. And I think when like there are so many things I didn't know, going through this. So I had to learn everything. So I had to learn, like making a DCP, how come we premiered at Popcorn Frights and our audio was terrible and it was my fault. So like when you're exporting out a Premiere in the DCP setting, there's like a 5.1 for your audio mix, which is what it was supposed to be. And in the setting, it says 5.1. So I click on it. And I go there and it's like completely not. And it's like the worst sound I've ever heard ever.
Oh, no.
I'm sitting there for 83 minutes having a panic attack.
Oh.
and I asked people before them, hey guys, you've done this before, can you help me out? And no one was available, so I just did what I did. But then after the fact, you learned your lesson. So there's just all these like lessons you learn, and then, but I feel like now I have a better sense of the real lessons and the ways around things. And so it's just like, I think for people who might be like, oh, I'll never make a film, it's like you totally could, you know.
Yeah.
And I feel like making a film is a miracle. Like it's a miracle to me that a film is ever made. Like I go to like Walmart and there's this bin of like $5 movies. I'm like, that's a bin of like $5 miracles, you know, because all these, even like, you know, you laugh, you're like, oh, who wants to watch this one? But it's like, it was a miracle to make that film. And so I think if people just think of it like that, and you get your friends together and you just make movies in the weekend, and then you become more ambitious. You know, like I didn't realize making this film that I was, oh, by the way, you're making an action movie too. I'm like, wait, what? Like I thought I was making a horror movie. Then you realize, oh, you need to like work on all your blocking, and you learn all of this. It's just incredible. So it's been such an education. And so I think that's the thing I would just say to people listening. It's like, if you're thinking about making a film, like there's so many like YouTube tutorials, there's Masterclass, which is great. There's tons of books out there, you know, listen to director's commentary on like DVDs and stuff. I mean, there's just so many things.
Yeah.
The only thing that I feel like the thing that separates, because it's like all that stuff is available to learn. I think the hardest thing is just learning how stress impacts you, and then how you just have to never give up on it. Because it's like so many people, like even like when I went to distributors, right? Like I went to AFM and I worked on I saw posters in a room, but I literally worked on the film. And I went in to talk to the distributor, like, oh, hey, I worked on that. And they like looked at me like I was nuts. They're like, you're crazy. And literally that same distributor had come and contacted me recently saying like, hey, John, you have world distribution. I'm like, yeah, not for you though. But it's just so I think just never give up, you know, no matter what. So I think you talking about your obvious love of slashers, I'm sure there's a story you want to tell someday. So I think, just go for it, you know. And I think the thing that I'm most appreciative of my experience of surviving, it's like I always go back to like, it'll never get as bad as what that was, you know, because I'll never let anybody have that kind of power over me ever again. And so I think it's almost like it frees you in a way to not be afraid anymore. And I think some people are afraid of like failing. Oh, what if it makes them, it sucks? Well, you probably will. So like, you just keep working until like the thing that sucks starts to get a little bit more mediocre, to where it's like average, and then maybe you make something good, you know. Yeah. I mean, that sounded weird, but it's just
no,
it's, you know what I mean? Like it's like you're gonna make, like I've made plenty of crap, so but you learn from it, you know.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
and that's awesome. And like I say, anyone who goes out there and puts everything on the line and makes a slasher film, nothing but love and respect from my side, man. And I just want to say a big thank you for coming on the podcast. I thoroughly appreciate it. Like I said, I've seen the film and I really enjoyed it, but I can't wait for everybody else to see the film, for it to get a wide release. And just for everyone out there, you know, just when Final Summer hits, go and support it, whether it's on streaming, if it gets any, you know, local showings or anything like that. Go and support it, and I think that'd be awesome. And where can people find you, John, in terms of social media and stuff like that? Where can people follow you guys?
Yeah, we're on Final Summer Movie on Facebook, Final Summer Movie on TikTok, which was crazy. Like that blew up like insane, because we always get like people who are like, it's a ripoff of Friday. I'm like, well, that was a ripoff of Halloween. So what, you know, we're in the same neighborhood, but like. But no, like TikTok, Final Summer Movie, that's been great. And then Instagram, Final Summer Movie also. And so that's great. Thank you so much. I'm going to get some food.
Yes, and I appreciate your time. We've got a long time there, and really appreciate it.
That's fun.
Like I said, best of luck with the film, John. I appreciate you coming on. And
feel free to reach out anytime, you know. So yeah.
Perfect.
If you talk I'm always down to talk slashers, you know. So
awesome. Well, we'll try. I tell you what, when when we do the sequel, I think we'll get you back on and we'll
100%.
talk it all again, and we'll shoot the shit and go through it all again.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a good night.
Awesome. Cheers, John. Thank you very much.
Thank you.